Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're going to be taking a deep dive into Elon Musk government data and a whole lot of privacy concerns.
Oh, yeah.
You guys sent over some really interesting articles,
Yeah.
and let's just say things are getting a little heated.
Little bit, yeah.
So for anyone just tuning in, we're talking about Elon Musk and his role at the Department of Government Efficiency,
Right?
DOGE for short.
Yeah.
And this isn't his first time working with the government.
No, it's not.
Remember back in January of 2025 when his company acquired the US Treasury's payment system?
Oh, absolutely. That caused quite a stir.
Yeah,
A lot of folks were already a little wary about a private company
right?
having that much access
Yeah, it felt like a huge shift.
to sensitive financial systems, yeah.
So now Musk is leading DOGE, which was created during the second Trump administration,
Right.
and the goal was to make the government, well, more efficient.
More efficient, exactly.
Sounds good on paper, right?
Sounds great.
But the latest news is that Musk's DOGE team is requesting access to a broad range of taxpayer data.
Yeah, I saw that.
And that has a lot of people, especially Democratic lawmakers, pretty worried.
Yeah, and it's understandable why they'd be concerned, right? We're talking about an unelected individual, no matter how successful in business,
Right.
potentially having access to incredibly sensitive information.
Yeah.
It raises some serious questions about accountability and transparency.
Huge question.
Just imagine the types of data they could access.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from your tax returns to social security numbers.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That is kind of scary when you put it like that.
it is a little bit, yeah.
It makes you wonder, what exactly are they planning to do with all that data?
Right.
And is anyone really keeping an eye on them?
Exactly. And that lack of clarity is fueling a lot of the anxiety around this whole thing.
Yeah.
One of the most vocal critics has been Representative Gregory Meeks,
Okay.
who did not hold back on Musk's own platform X.
Right.
You know, the one formerly known as Twitter.
Of course.
He called Musk an unelected oligarch
Wow.
and raised concerns about someone with no security clearance having access to such confidential information.
So he's not pulling any punches.
No, he's not.
But is it fair to call him an oligarch?
Well,
I mean, he was put into this position, right?
that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of the debate here.
Okay.
Some argue that Musk's appointment and DOGE's broad reach represent a dangerous shift in power dynamics.
I see.
They worry about private interests potentially influencing government decisions.
I see what you mean. It definitely blurs the lines a bit.
It does.
And this whole situation has gotten so heated that Democrats have actually introduced the Taxpayer Data Protection Act in response.
Yeah,
That seems like a pretty big deal.
it is.
What's the main goal there?
Well, the act is essentially an attempt to prevent this kind of situation from happening again.
Okay.
It aims to restrict DOGE's access to sensitive taxpayer information and establish clearer guidelines for data security and oversight.
So it's like they're trying to put up some guardrails around DOGE and set some boundaries.
Yeah, put up some fences.
It makes sense considering what happened back when DOGE got access to the Treasury payment system.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't that lead to a bunch of legal challenges?
It did.
Yeah.
That situation really highlights the unease surrounding DOGE's actions.
Okay.
19 states and 3 labor unions actually filed lawsuits trying to block DOGE's access.
Wow.
They were specifically worried about the potential for misuse of Treasury Department records that contained personal data of millions of Americans.
Wow. 19 states.
19 states.
It's a pretty strong signal that something wasn't right.
Yeah,
They must have been really concerned about what DOGE could do with that data.
extremely.
What exactly were they worried about?
Well, think about it. These records potentially contain everything from financial transactions to social security numbers.
Right.
The lawsuits argued that President Trump had essentially given Elon Musk free rein without proper authorization or oversight. They saw it as a real threat to individual privacy and even national security.
Hold on, a threat to national security.
That's what they were saying.
How did that be?
Well, their concern was that with such broad access, DOGE could potentially identify vulnerabilities or exploit loopholes in financial systems, or even use the data for personal gain. Remember, this is the same guy who bought the US Treasury's payment system just a year earlier.
Okay, that does put things in a different light.
It does.
So what happened with the lawsuits? Did they manage to stop DOGE?
Yes and no. Judge Paul A. Engelmeyer, a federal judge appointed by President Obama, by the way, issued a preliminary injunction to prevent DOGE from accessing those sensitive Treasury records.
So they got a preliminary injunction.
Right.
For those of us who aren't legal experts, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Did it shut down DOGE completely?
Not entirely, but it was a major setback for sure.
Okay.
Basically, a preliminary injunction is like a temporary stop sign.
Okay.
The judge saw enough merit in the lawsuit's arguments to say, hold on, let's pause things.
Right.
While we figure out if this is legal and safe,
Got it.
it prevented DOGE from accessing those specific Treasury records while the case played out in court.
Okay, so a temporary win for the states and unions that filed the lawsuits.
You got it.
But it still doesn't answer the question of what DOGE was actually doing with all this data.
Right.
And it seems like that lack of transparency is what really fueled the fire.
Yeah.
Didn't some senators accuse the Treasury Secretary of being less than truthful about DOGE's activities?
Yeah, you're exactly right. 3 Senate Democrats called out Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent for what they called a lack of candor
Hmm.
regarding DOGE.
Okay.
They felt he was being deliberately vague about DOGE's operations
Right.
and essentially keeping the public in the dark.
It's no wonder people were being suspicious.
For sure.
It sounds like a classic case of if you've got nothing to hide, then why hide it?
Right.
But let's move on to another controversial aspect of DOGE, the layoffs in the Energy Department.
Okay.
That whole situation seems like a prime example of how good intentions can sometimes backfire in spectacular ways.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
On the surface, the idea of streamlining a government department and making it more efficient seems perfectly reasonable.
Right.
But when you're talking about an agency responsible for national security,
Yeah.
and particularly the nuclear weapons program,
Uh-huh.
well, that's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, messing around with nuclear weapons doesn't exactly sound like the best place to experiment with efficiency.
Not really.
So what happened? Did they just start handing out pink slips left and right?
Pretty much DOGE oversaw the layoffs of around 300 Energy Department workers,
Wow.
which immediately raised concerns
Right.
about potential risks to national security.
Yeah.
People were worried that critical expertise was being lost
Okay.
and that the cuts could compromise safety protocols.
Wait, so they laid off people who were working on nuclear weapons
Yeah,
in the name of efficiency?
it was part of the streamlining.
That seems incredibly reckless.
It certainly raised a lot of eyebrows.
Yeah.
And the backlash was so intense that the Trump administration was forced to reverse the layoffs.
Really?
They basically had to admit they'd made a mistake.
So a major backfire for DOGE.
Big time.
It makes you wonder if they were so focused on cutting costs and boosting efficiency that they didn't fully grasp the complexities and potential consequences of their actions.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And it raises some fundamental questions about the wisdom of giving a private individual like Elon Musk,
Right.
no matter how brilliant he may be,
Right.
so much power over such sensitive areas of government.
Yeah.
Is there a point where efficiency becomes counterproductive?
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with things like national security and data privacy.
That's a question a lot of people are asking right now.
Definitely.
It all boils down to those core issues of the role of private individuals and companies in government, the balance between efficiency and accountability, and the long-term consequences of these kinds of partnerships.
For sure.
But it's also important to remember the political context here.
Right.
The whole situation with Elon Musk and DOGE is unfolding against a backdrop of deep political divisions.
Absolutely. And it's become another battleground in the ongoing culture war.
Oh, yeah.
You have some, particularly on the left,
Okay.
who are deeply suspicious of Musk's motives and see this as a power grab by an unelected billionaire.
Right.
Then you have others, often on the right, who applaud his innovative approach and see DOGE as a much-needed shakeup
Okay.
of a bloated and inefficient bureaucracy.
So it's basically become a partisan issue,
Pretty much.
which makes it even harder to have a rational conversation about the real issues at stake.
Yeah,
Data privacy, national security, the role of technology in government.
for sure.
What's the public's take on all this? Are people generally supportive of Musk's involvement, or are they more wary?
Well, public opinion is pretty divided,
Yeah.
which isn't surprising given how polarizing Musk can be.
Right.
Some people see him as a visionary leader,
Okay.
someone who can cut through red tape
Yeah.
and bring fresh ideas to a government that often stuck in the past.
Right.
They believe his business experience and tech savvy could actually make the government more efficient and responsive.
So they see him as a disruptor in a good way.
Exactly.
Someone who can shake things up and get things done.
Yeah, they viewed DOGE as a sign that the government is finally embracing innovation and modernizing.
Okay.
But on the other side, you have those who are deeply skeptical of his motives.
Right.
They see him as a reckless billionaire
Uh-huh.
who's more interested in his own agenda than the public good.
I could see both sides of the argument, honestly.
Yeah,
He's definitely achieved some incredible things in the private sector,
for sure.
but government is a whole different beast,
Totally.
and the stakes are so much higher.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to the core issue here, data privacy.
Right.
No matter what you think of Musk giving DOGE access to vast amounts of taxpayer data is a huge risk.
Yeah.
We're talking about everything from personal financial records to sensitive health information.
It's a bit unsettling to think about all that data potentially being in the hands of a private company.
Yeah,
Even if it's for the sake of efficiency,
I agree.
what are the potential risks here? Could this lead to identity theft or fraud?
Absolutely, those are valid concerns, but it goes even deeper than that.
Okay.
With today's sophisticated data analysis tools, Even seemingly harmless bits of information can be pieced together to create incredibly detailed profiles of individuals.
So they could build a whole picture of your life, your habits, your beliefs, even your vulnerabilities,
Uh-huh.
just from bits and pieces of data.
Pretty much.
That's kind of creepy.
It is.
Yeah.
And once that data is out there, it's almost impossible to control how it's used or who has access to it.
Right.
It could be used for targeted advertising, political manipulation, even discrimination.
Wow.
The potential for abuse is huge.
Now I'm starting to understand why those states and unions were so adamant about blocking DOGE's access to those Treasury records.
Yeah.
They were trying to draw a line in the sand before it was too late.
Exactly, and it highlights the critical need for strong legal frameworks and oversight
Yeah.
to ensure that any access to sensitive data is tightly controlled and used only for legitimate purposes.
Right.
We need clear rules and safeguards in place to protect our privacy in this increasingly data-driven world.
It all feels very Big Brother-ish.
It does a little bit.
Is there anything we can do as individuals to protect ourselves in this environment?
Mm-hmm.
Or is our data just out there for the taking?
It can feel overwhelming, I know, but we're not completely powerless.
Okay.
We can be more mindful about who we share our information with, be wary of phishing scams, and use strong passwords and encryption tools.
Okay.
But just as important is staying informed about data privacy legislation and advocating for stronger protections.
So we need to be proactive and make our voices heard.
Absolutely. It's about being informed citizens and demanding accountability from our leaders.
Yeah.
This isn't just about individual rights. It's about the kind of society we want to live in.
Right.
Do we want a society where our every move is tracked and analyzed?
Right.
Or one where privacy is respected and protected?
Those are some big questions.
They are.
And I think the whole situation with Elon Musk and DOGE has really brought them to the forefront.
For sure.
It's like a wake-up call,
Yeah.
reminding us that we can't afford to be complacent when it comes to our data and our privacy.
Couldn't agree more. The future isn't predetermined.
Right.
We have a say in shaping the world we want to live in.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us to engage in this conversation, to demand transparency, and to fight for a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Well said. This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah, it has.
We've uncovered a lot of unsettling information.
For sure.
But we've also identified some crucial questions that we as a society need to grapple with.
Yeah.
And that's what the deep dive is all about, provoking thought-challenging assumptions and helping you make informed decisions.
Exactly. We hope this episode has given you the tools and knowledge to navigate this complex and rapidly evolving landscape.
Yeah.
Remember, the future is in our hands. Let's make it a future worth fighting for.
I love that. To all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Elon Musk government data and the fight for privacy in the digital age.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll be back next week with another fascinating topic, so stay tuned. Until then, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep. 771.